Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to my college football week 13 upset alert special edition where I put 5 teams that are currently favored by Vegas on upset alert. And let me just say, I think Vegas did a really good job this week favoring the teams, that I think it should be favoring. A lot of bold picks by Vegas putting, how about Nebraska? Until the Adrian Martinez injury, obviously, Nebraska was a 3.5-point favorite with 3 wins against the 9-win Iowa. Guys, make sure, before the video starts, make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. Happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, happy Black Friday. Let's get right into my 5 teams that I think could get upset in the last week of the regular season for college football. Number 1, we've got Ole Miss plus 1.5 at Mississippi State, so I'm putting Mississippi State on upset alert. Probably not that surprising. Probably wouldn't even be an upset to many people. Ole Miss ranked 9th in the updated college football playoff rankings, and I think that caught me off guard a little bit. Not that Ole Miss isn't the 9th best team. I was just like, wow, you keep winning, you keep moving up. This is what happens. Ole Miss only has 2 losses with an SEC schedule. We have to respect it. It's a decent team, but it was just it was kind of surprising to see Ole Miss all the way up in that 9 spot. One of the losses coming to Alabama. At Mississippi State, I love the over in this game. I love Ole Miss I don't love, but I like Ole Miss to win this game outright. Mississippi State, a little too streaky, a little too bad on defense. They do have the air raid. I'm loving the over. This is on Thanksgiving night, 7:30 on ESPN. Ole Miss, just a well put together team, really good offense. I'll take them to win outright. Not really much of an upset there. The next one, Nebraska. So crazy things with this game. Nebraska opens as 3.5-point favorites. They're a 3-win football team. Iowa's 9-2, and I completely agreed with Nebraska being 3.5-point favorites. Then Adrian Martinez is ruled out with the injury. Now Iowa is 1.5-point favorites. I wouldn't bet on this game. I typed this up 2 days ago before I realized Adrian Martinez was going to be out. I just thought the line had moved that much because the public was betting on Iowa. It would be a crazy movement. But if a line's going to move 4 or 5 points within an hour, there's going to be a major injury. So they updated the line. Nebraska went from 3.5-point favorites to 1.5-point underdogs. The thing with Iowa is they just cannot generate offense. They cannot generate any offense. It feels like they average 250 yards per game. They had about 250 yards against Minnesota. They've had a nice season. They're 9-2. They're still hanging in there. I believe if Wisconsin loses to Minnesota, which they won't, but if they somehow did and Iowa wins, Iowa would go to the Big Ten Championship. Maybe Wisconsin still has the tiebreaker. I know one of Wisconsin's losses was out of conference because they lost to Notre Dame at Soldier Field, but this is an interesting game. I would not bet it, but it's still, realistically, even with Adrian Martinez being out, I could see Nebraska winning it. I mean, they're only 1.5-point underdogs. Think about how crazy this is. A 3-win team going into the last game of the regular season is 1-point underdogs with their starting quarterback out against a 9-2 football team in conference, both in the same conference. It's not like one of the 9-2 teams a group of 5. This is a crazy line. I don't feel confident, but I still wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska wins this game outright, to be honest. Number 3, I love this one. Rutgers plus 1.5 versus Maryland. The wrong team is favored in this game. Rutgers is at home. Both of these teams are 5-6. Maryland does have more talent. I understand it, but at this point, I watched Maryland last week. They just quit against Michigan. It was disgusting. This Rutgers team, they want to make a bowl. See, even if you go 5-7, they might still be able to make a bowl, but this Rutgers team, they want to earn it. Greg Schiano, you're at home. You're going to play some inspired football. You've come so far. You were one of the worst Power 5, maybe the worst Power 5 teams 4 or 5 years ago. Now, you're respectable. You're going to try and finish out the regular season 500, not have a losing record for the first time in a while. This is a big motivating factor for Rutgers, and if I was doing a spread, I would put Rutgers -3. If I was Vegas making a spread, I would say Rutgers -3. I think that these teams are pretty much even. Maryland may have a little more talent, but Rutgers makes up for it with just overall grit, and they're at home. Give me Rutgers in this game to win it outright. They're plus 1.5 there. We've got Northwestern plus 6.5 at Illinois. This is a Pat Fitzgerald special. I'm smelling something. I'm smelling a very close game. Both of these teams very similar in terms of overall talent. I understand Northwestern is on the road, but Illinois just isn't very good. Although Illinois did get a few big wins. We respect Illinois' big wins in the Big Ten. They did beat Penn State. We remember the 8 overtime game. That was something. But this Northwestern team, last game of the regular season, you got to bet on the coaches. In games like this where it's meaningless, you bet on the coaches. I'm trusting Pat Fitzgerald. I'm trusting Greg Schiano to have their teams ready to play
and they're going to be motivated, and this is going to be a very close game, and I could see Illinois losing it. I am putting the Illini on upset alert. It's funny to say that due to how bad Illinois is. They're actually favored, but I am putting them on upset alert. And then we've got Kansas, plus 15.5 versus West Virginia.
You know, this is actually a really remarkable line because a month ago, like Kansas at home against West Virginia, Kansas would be plus 28, but they've played so well recently. They were 21-point underdogs, I believe, at home against TCU. They nearly won that game outright. They lost by 3 points. They've won some games. We know the game against Texas, the shootout win they had in that one, terrible for Texas, but Kansas is playing better. This West Virginia offense is horrific, guys. It is terrible. It is just horrendous. Give me Kansas plus 15.5. They're going to keep it close. You're at home. Last game of the regular season. You're facing a bad offense. You can do this. Kansas can do it. They can keep it close. If they win this game, talk about a momentum changer. Talk about a program changer in the last game of the regular season. No, they're not going to a bowl, but that'd be a huge win for them. And then how about Kansas State plus 3 at Texas? You know, with Texas right now, what is going on with that university? You cannot feel comfortable betting Texas for anything at they're 3-point favorites. Basically, it's a pick 'em because the game's in Texas. If it was a neutral site game, it'd be a pick 'em. They have these teams as even. Kansas State, their offense really bad. Their defense pretty good. But this is just a game where it's just like Texas is just, they keep losing. Texas cannot win. They cannot win a single game. And now they're favorites. It's like you're telling me I should pick Kansas State. Maybe Texas gets back on track, but dude, I mean, you're tempting fate if you're taking Texas minus 3 here. Like, I don't know how you can bet Texas with any confidence. Again, Kansas State, they do have Texas has way more talent, so they're going to be favored. Kansas State has a really bad offense, but you have to understand Texas is so bad right now. You have to prove something on the field to me for me to bet you. I don't trust you. I think you're going to lose again to Kansas State. And that's going to do it for my teams on upset alert. So Mississippi State, Iowa, Maryland, Illinois, West Virginia, and Texas. And guys, just to tell you, Oklahoma State being favored over Oklahoma by 4 points. There's a lot of close lines, but I love that Oklahoma State's favored. I think Oklahoma State's going to win. Obviously, I think Ohio State's going to beat Michigan. That spread's a little bit bigger, but there's another interesting game that I was really surprised Vegas got right. They have Louisville favored over Kentucky. I think Louisville's going to spank Kentucky. Kentucky is overrated. They're not that good on defense. And Louisville with Malik Cunningham, the stats that he's been putting up, it is awesome and crazy to watch. We just had the college football playoff rankings released last night. Let me quickly talk about that. Right now with the college football playoff, the situation, you've got Georgia as the clear number 1. You've got Ohio State as the clear number 2. If Georgia and Ohio State win out, they are locked into the number 1 overall seed and the number 2 overall seed. Cincinnati right now is a betting favorite to make the playoff. If they win out, I think at this point with Cincinnati, with some of these other teams losing, I think Cincinnati's in. Overall one-loss Big 12 champion, whether that's Oklahoma State or Oklahoma. If you're Cincinnati, you prefer, if there's going to be a one-loss Big 12 champion, you prefer it to be Oklahoma because the committee has thought more highly of Oklahoma State than Oklahoma throughout this entire process. And then as for, the Big 12 champ, will an Oklahoma State get in? I would love to see a team like Oklahoma State get into the playoff as the 4 seed. It would be basically a bye for Georgia, but it would still be fun to see. And then the matchup that we all want, we're all excited for, the Ohio State-Cincinnati possible semifinal game. The only way that probably wouldn't happen at this point, if Ohio State loses to Michigan or to Wisconsin. We don't expect them to, but if they do, they would be out, so that wouldn't happen. And then the other thing, this is the big thing, if Alabama does beat Georgia, the theory is Alabama and Georgia would be 1-2 or 1-3 because you would avoid the rematch. Both of them are one-loss teams. Georgia's been number 1, all year. They lose one game in the SEC championship. They're still going to remain in the playoff. Alabama might take the number 1 overall seed. That's what Kirk Herbstreit was saying. And then you have Ohio State versus Georgia in the 2v3 matchup. And then the 1v4 matchup would be Alabama versus possibly Cincinnati or the Big 12 champ. And then you've got the independent Notre Dame, who's just been on an absolute tear. This is why we need to expand the playoff to 12 teams, because a team like Notre Dame should be given the chance. The way they've been playing recently, they only have 1 loss, but they do not have that extra data point of the conference championship, and they do have a but a pretty subpar schedule. They got that big win against Wisconsin, but other than that, it's been tough. And then they have the head-to-head loss at home to Cincinnati. So that's where we stand with the playoff. If I had to predict it right now, I would go Georgia, the number 1 overall seed. I'd go Ohio State, the number 2 overall seed. I'd go Cincinnati, the number 3 overall seed. And I would go Oklahoma State, the number 4 overall seed. The other thing that throws a monkey wrench into all of this, let's say Alabama loses a close game to Georgia. We all know they're going to want to be in the playoff. It's going to be annoying. I'm sick of hearing about it. When the first rankings were released and a one-loss Alabama was the 2 seed, I knew it was going to be a problem. I knew this is what was going to happen. Hopefully, Georgia destroys Alabama or wins by at least 14, so Alabama just gets out. But if Alabama loses by a field goal, there will be a major chance that they still make the playoff as a 2-loss non-conference champion due to, you lose. This is the argument they're going to frame it. They're going to say you lose to the best team in the nation. Georgia's been the best team all year. You lose to the best team in the nation by a field goal. Why should you really be penalized for that? That's what they're going to say. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you are following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.